As someone who hates having bikes that serve the same purpose, it might seem a little weird that I've got these two bikes behind me right now. One is a steel-framed 29 Plus bike, and the other one is also a steel-framed 29 Plus bike. In this video, I'm going to talk about my experience riding the Jones LWB and the Stooge Speedbomb and how the two compare. So let's get into it. So when I originally ordered the Speedbomb, I didn't even think about how it might overlap with the LWB, which I'd had for a long time. But everyone else thought of it, apparently, because this is one of my most requested videos or comparisons that I've ever gotten requests for. I've gotten messages, I've gotten comments, everything. And that's kind of when it dawned on me that, oh wait, there might be some overlap. But I think this is where you really got to realize how geometry plays a major factor. So let's do a really quick overview of each bike so you can understand it. And then I'll kind of talk about the ride differences, because that's what you really want to know. That's what you can't get from just looking at things on paper. I'm going to start with the LWB because that's the bike I got first and the one that I've had longer. First off, this bike has a very different body position that it puts you in, very upright, and it puts you very much in the very center of the bike. So this bike is extremely balanced when it comes to where the rider is in comparison to the two axles. It does that by having this super long chainstay in the back, which is in the 480s. Outrageous number there. Up front, you get a 67.5-degree head tube angle, but to make it ride a little bit quicker, you get a huge offset on. As you can see right there, 76 millimeters of offset. This bike is pretty cool in that it can clear a 29 by 3.25. This tire right here, Duro Crux. It can clear that front and rear. I've got a PNW dropper post on it right now. I think this is only 90 millimeters of travel. It's a 27.2 seat tube, so you can't really fit, there's not a lot of options. So that's what I've got right there. And then up front, obviously the Jones H bars. This bike is very much designed for these bars. Another unique thing about the LWB is it runs a boost spaced rear wheel. And then up front, we've got a 150 by 15, which if you haven't heard of that, that's a fat bike standard. So this front wheel works on a fat bike. Now on to the Speedbomb. Despite having a very non-traditional look, it has much more traditional geometry. It only comes in one size, and this one has a 460 reach, which is very normal for like a medium large size. The effective top tube is 625. Again, very normal for about a large. The head angle is 66 degrees, so a full 1.5 degrees slacker than the LWB. The chainstay is 450 millimeters. It's got 75 mils of bottom bracket drop. Speaking of that, it's got an eccentric bottom bracket. The LWB you can get with an eccentric bottom bracket, but you have to buy the frame set alone. The complete does not come with that. It can also run an internal dropper, which is a 30.9 millimeter. Not quite the most common size out there, but way more common than finding a dropper for a 27.2. It's also boost spacing front and rear, so you're gonna have a little bit easier time finding pre-built wheel sets. And the bike is designed for 29 plus, 29er, and 27.5 plus. Up front, you can clear a 29 by 3.25, and in the back, you've got room for a 29 by 3. While not designed specifically around these bars right here, which are also from Stooge, these are the Junker bars with 85 millimeters of rise, you do need something with a little more rise. Both bikes are gonna have mounting locations for racks. The Jones also has them for fenders. The Speedbomb does up front, but I don't think the rear does. You'd probably have to go with some other aftermarket type of attachment there. But you've got room for 3 bottle cages on both, as well as 3-pack mounts on the forks, and plenty of just mounting spaces all over the place. So you might have already noticed some differences there. There's obviously a few little ones when it comes to tire clearance, but generally they're both going to clear basically the same tires. The LWB can just clear that bigger one in the rear. But the biggest differences come down to geometry. And this is where I always stress this, and I think that it's something people really need to consider, is geometry is the core of the bike. One of the things I've always said about the LWB, despite having a 67.5-degree head tube and just being really long and being very different compared to typical mountain bike geometry, is it is extremely capable. A lot of that comes down to the Plus tires. A lot of it comes down to a very compliant frame feel. It's extremely comfortable. You get a lot of give as you're going, and so it can take some of the harshness out of the fact that you're riding a fully rigid bike. There's also some magic that Jeff has done there when it comes to, I don't know, like for some reason, the very centered position on the bike and everything like that, it makes it so you feel very confident as you go down some pretty spicy stuff. I've ridden a lot of black diamond trails with it. I've hit a lot of bonus lines, you know, borderline some double black stuff, and it's a ton of fun on that. But with that said, there is a reason I was interested in the Speedbomb. That's because I realized at that point I didn't have anything that was more of just a typical mountain bike. I just wanted something that gave me kind of a similar feel to the LWB, but a little more traditional capability and fit and feel. And if you've seen my review on the Speedbomb, you'll know that's exactly what it delivers. It is a crazy capable bike. I don't feel like I've hit the limits of it. I just feel like on the Speedbomb, it's the bike that I would take if I was going with my buddies and we were going to be hitting a lot of harder blue and black diamond trails, and we said we're going to some dedicated mountain bike trails. The LWB, on the other hand, is still got some, I don't know, ATB or all-terrain bike feel to it. I really like this bike for trails and areas where you just don't know what you're gonna get. You have a mix of maybe some double track, some dirt roads, as well as a good amount of green, blue, and even some black trails. It's the bike that I really enjoy for that. I feel more like I'm gonna go exploring on this, and just I could take it from my house and ride on pavement and dirt roads and everything like that, as well as some of those trails, and have fun the whole time. Whereas the Speedbomb is more of a dedicated mountain bike. It's fine to ride on some of that easier stuff, the greens, especially if it's flowy and fast. That's a ton of fun. But once you're on dirt roads and pavement and stuff, it just feels a little slower, feels like a little too much bike for those types of scenarios, whereas the LWB still feels a little bit lighter, a little bit more nimble. I've said this before, the LWB is a little bit different in its body position. You're very upright, and people who ride bikes a lot, and mountain bike a lot, some of them struggle with it. I've let some people ride it, and they think, wow, this is really comfortable, but I don't feel comfortable on it for trails. So in that case, that's where I'd pick the Speedbomb. It's just got a more traditional fit to it. At the end of my Speedbomb review, I gave a little sneak peek or a little hint at how these two compared. I'm going to reiterate that again. I do not like having two bikes that overlap in purpose. And after a lot of people pointed that out, I started to think, oh crap, what did I do? I invested in this frame set. I waited for it to come, threw all these parts at it. Am I going to regret this decision? And the truth of the matter is, no, I don't. I see these as two very different bikes. The LWB feels almost more like an XC bike. And I don't mean that in a way of like going really fast all over the place. I mean it more in it has a wider range of fun on it, while the Speedbomb to me is more of my actual mountain bike. I view it more how people would say maybe like a hardcore hardtail is, or even maybe a trail bike. But that's all I've got for you. That's kind of my comparison. Two very different bikes, despite having the same frame material, having no suspension, running the same tire size. They're two very different bikes. If you've ridden both, I want to know what your thoughts are on that. Does that sound right to you, or am I just completely in the weeds, which might be the case? Anyway, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. If you want to support me, consider buying a sticker or leaving a super thanks, or I don't know, share this video. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.